chapter 2, verse 11. Wherefore,
Now, for some reason, they think that yelling and screaming, this kind of brand of intimidation helps, but it really doesn't. And it certainly doesn't help that if you take a passage out of context, which is what they do. We'll come back and show what the Lord has come to do, one in the Old Testament, also in the New Testament. What Jesus says, what someone like Paul says, what the prophets have said before.
remember that you, being in times past, he say remember. He was telling the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans of today, who are the Israelites, to remember, read.
Now, he's not telling the black, Hispanics, and Native Americans of the day. That supposes that he has ignored all the other groups of people that lived before the blacks, the Hispanics, the Native Americans, and any other people up to date. What about those that lived 1,000 years ago? What about those that lived 2,000 years ago? What about those people that lived even prior to Jesus? Are we saying that God had no concern, no care for them? Well, listening to them, that's exactly what they're saying.
Being in times past, when we went off in idolatry and we started following the rules and the regulations of the other nations, read, Gentiles, being Gentiles, what? In the flesh, in the flesh.
So this is just bad doctrine. This is horrible doctrine. As a matter of fact, this is something that comes from their leader, Bishop Nathaniel, close to the beginning in Genesis 12. Notice what God is saying. This is before we even have a nation of Israel. And by the way, there are those who were saved who are prior to, who were born not of Israel, but even prior to Israel. As a matter of fact, there are those who we know to be faithful people who are in the Lord, those who were saved who are prior to, who were born not of Israel, but even prior to Israel. As a matter of fact, there are those who we know to be faithful people who are in the Lord who are not Jews. For example, someone like Caleb. Caleb is a Kenizzite. He is not from the tribe of, not from Israel. He did stay with and camped with the tribe of Judah, but his father, Jephunneh, was not a Jew. And so it's always been that even non-Jews can be part of the kingdom. The goal of God is not that people will become Jew, but that everyone, Jew or Gentile, will become part of the church, part of his body. As and I will make you a great nation. Now, this is singular. Well, which nation is he speaking of? Obviously, he's speaking of Israel. And I will bless you and make your name great, and you shall be a blessing. And here it is. And I will bless those. Who's the those? Well, someone that's not Jewish. I will bless those who bless you, which means it has to be some Gentile nation that he's speaking of. And the one who curses you, I will curse.
But why did she choose wrong? Why did she blow it? If she was perfect, why did she blow it?
She had the perfect capacity to choose right and wrong. Now, that would be like saying...
But why did she choose wrong? Why? What was in her that made her choose wrong instead of right? Where did that come from? That flaw of perdition.
And this is with all due respect, but I would say, what is in you that would make you choose the wrong idea and adhere to atheism?
Well, then if God created me, then God created imperfection, didn't he? I know the Bible. I translated from original languages. I have some Greek knowledge. I know what it says. I know the Bible contradicts itself. It was written by ignorant human beings who said a few true things, but by and large, the Bible is not a reliable source of truth. It exaggerates. It has historical mistakes and anachronisms in it. It has contradictory advice. It has some really bad advice. It has a deity whose vanity is so fragile that he gets angry and has to kill off entire people. In Psalm 137:9, he told us that we should be happy to take the innocent babies and dash them against the stones. That's, even if that God did exist, I might necessarily want to worship such a monster.
And it certainly doesn't help that if you take a passage out of context. Context.
I want to give all the praises and the honor to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Racha HaKodash, and double honors to the elder apostles and the bishops of Great Millstone. Honors as well to you, brethren and fellow believers of this truth, and shalom to the elect. Anyway, I want to touch on this video by this guy here, about a smart Christian channel. He's on fire, Rebel Christian. This is his channel, PayPal Me Smart Christian Country, or whatever. These guys all have these donations, and that's their platform. So, they're not in our truth. But anyway, we want to go into context. You know, what is context? Context is not always clear as what people think it is. Con meaning with, and the text is the scripture. So it's with dealing with the scriptures, but it's a little more complex, right? Because of the translations over the years. And this is why Christians have always found a way to love the scriptures down, you know, like dumb them down, they love them down. And it's made this power of God that they call God a almighty loving power, and that's it. Although he's created a place for torment, according to them, that they will burn forever, right? So it seemed like, again, this is a God that they're speaking of that is not in control of his emotions and feelings. And we all know that the God of Israel is in control of his emotions and feelings. This is why I put the clip in there, and the atheist was saying, and a Christian could not answer. And of course they listen to us now and they say, okay, God created good and evil. So, you know, a lot of these Christians coming out with these channels and these platforms, they extracting what we teach, and then they add them into their arsenal, but keep the doctrine of God loves all, right? So the Adam and Eve, the Christian couldn't answer. He said, well, he gave him the ability to believe if that's what she wanted. But then this atheist said, well, why would the Lord allow that? So my first scripture come to mind that I didn't even have up is what I'm going to get, right? And these Christians, the Bible isn't for them. And this is clear that they do not understand the Bible. They don't understand Gentile, right? I mean, these are words that all have same spellings and pronunciations because of translations out of the Hebrew to the Greek, right? And the Latin, there's problems, right? Let's go to Isaiah 55. A lot of you know where I'm going with that. It says here, for my 55:8, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither your ways my ways, saith the Lord. Let me get another one. These are all scriptures that I'm just thinking of as, you know how it goes when you do a video. Those of you doing a lot of videos. Psalms 47:2. For the Lord Most High is terrible. He is a great king over all the earth. When you go in this word terrible, it actually means feared. He's a feared king. Why would he be a feared king? So we're going to get some examples out of the Bible that shows you the true context that Christians just don't want to tell you the truth. It's just what it is. And one of the truths is that God is so-called racist. God is so-called sexist, right? God is originally was called Al-Shaddai, demon power, right? This is what they don't want to accept. And this is what happened when white plantation Christianity brought you that white Jesus, that love all, peaceful Jesus. And although that Jesus looks effeminate with the sandals and the bed sheet, right? He had no border of blue on, by the way, no fringes. But because they bought this image, that image destroyed and killed a lot of our people, right? And this guy talking about is blacks and Hispanics. We don't teach that. You know, it is blacks and Native Americans, Hispanics, but it's not strictly skin color in a whole, right? So let me get this word context. Context, the part of discourse that surround a word or passage and can throw light on its meaning. So this is why teachers are set up. Because if it was that simple to read, as Bishop Nathaniel says, you don't need Hebrew and Greek. Well, what the hell are you there for? Translate what? It says what it says, right? So somebody has to translate Galatians 3:28, Jew and Greek, which in other translations said Jew and Gentile. In other translations said Jew and heathen. So now we got to find out who's the Greeks, the Gentiles, and the heathens. As I did the lesson yesterday, the word went to Grecian. And wait a minute, heathens was non-believers or practicing idolatrous practices. So wouldn't the Israelites have also been doing that? That's why he said, go not in the way of Samaria, go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, enter not into the city of Samaria, enter ye not. But then, why did he say, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, go not into the way of the Gentiles? But everybody thinks the Gentiles are just heathen nations. No, the Gentiles was Israelites too, as 1 Corinthians 12 says. You, brethren, you were once Gentiles. But anyway, moving on. Let's go to the context. In the earliest usage in the 15th century, context meant weaving together of words and language. Right? So this is why when we go to the Bible of 1300s, to the Bible of 1599, to the Bible of 1539, the Great Bible, the Cloverdale Bible, the Geneva Bible, the King James Bible, and even the Bibles of 1700s and 1800s, they all had some contextualized changes, because the scholars would read it and say, okay, well, this means this. And it's over times, like a rumor that starts out, like say an example, if somebody put a rumor out that this young woman, she sleeps around, right? So you look at this, and then you see this young woman after school, she's getting picked up by different men. So then writers would write it down, she was picked up by different men. Over time, these things kind of change in understanding what it is. But then somewhere from the beginning, someone said that this was our uncles and our cousins and our brothers. And then you can see how things get thrown completely out of course because somebody didn't quite understand what was said. This is why we have to go into the root of the words to understand what it means. Because it says here, mostly joining, referring, exist, joining something together. And when you go on down, I think it was, I was kept reading on it. It was talking about in different parts of like the 15th century, and then later it changed to something else, and then changed to something else, right? So anyway, let's get some examples of that, right? And the way these people think who God is. Let's go to Numbers 32 and 12. This is a great example. It says, save Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, and Joshua, the son of Nun, for they have wholly followed the Lord. So here you'll see, okay, the son of Caleb. Caleb must have been a Kenizzite. See, he was another nation. This is what they say. See, but if it wasn't for us going into the studies and the root of what is being said, you would never know. And this is what the Christians do. They just make it up as they go along. Anyway, so we go here. The Kenizzite, this is what it says. Right? Just reading a couple of things. There's no direct Greek equivalent for Kenizzite, but Strong's dictionary designate the Hebrew Bible. The term Kenizzite refers to a member of a clan or a tribe associated with Kenaz. In the Bible, the Kenizzites are mentioned as one of the groups inhabiting in the land promised to Abraham, Abraham's descendants. Right? This also goes into when the scriptures talk about in Deuteronomy 32, where it says, what was that? Edom, not a whore Edomite, if I can remember that. When it says not the whore Edomite, and it was going to the Assyrian, not the whore an Assyrian, because they was also living, believed somewhere in the land with the that was relatives of Abraham, right? If I can remember correctly, right? But this is, I just want to make this point here. The term is also used, described as individuals who descendants of Kenaz, such as Caleb, who is referred to as a Kenizzite, right? But we're going to show you, this is why you got to go into context. The Kenizzites were one of many Canaanite tribes inhabiting the land of Canaan before the Israelite conquest. They were mentioned in the context of the land promised to Abraham in Genesis 15. So you would have had Israelites, right? You had Israelites A lot of times when you see such and such, these such and such, sometimes these words do mean like Simon the Canaanite because of what he actually means, his name actually means. But then we had Israelites who boarded certain lands and lived in certain lands, and they were calling themselves other things. Like Paul was calling himself a Roman. Cornelius was calling himself he was a centurion, right? So let's get more proof on that then. It says, of the tribe of Judah, Caleb, the son of Jephunneh. So what did he do? Just change his tribes? Of course, this doesn't make sense. So a lot of times when I see it, I learn when it says up here, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite. This is why I say Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, right? You don't really see David, the Judite. You get the point. I just wanted to bring that out. This man was from the tribe of Judah. He was a Jew, right? That's all. That called himself, his father called himself something else. That's all, right? Anyway, the Kenizzites were one of many Canaanite tribes inhabiting the land of Canaan before the Israelite conquest. They are mentioned in the context of the land promised to Abraham in Genesis 15 and 19. The Kenizzites, like other Canaanite tribes, were eventually assimilated or displaced by the Israelites. Caleb is a notable figure in the Israelite community, is identified as a Kenizzite, indicating that some Kenizzites integrated into Israelite society. Yeah, you get the point. You can't just change your tribe. You can't be a heathen of another nation and then call yourself a Judite. It doesn't work like that. Anyway, and if a man mess with a woman of another nation, that child that comes out is of that father's nation. Read the book of Numbers 1. Let's get another example. Right? He pulled out Genesis 12 when it's in seed and all the families of the earth be blessed. Let's go to that. I think it's Genesis 12. We all know that. It's the first thing these Christians come up with, man. But it's a good scripture. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee, and in thee shall all the families of the earth be blessed. But this is what we see, and this is what I want to bring up. Let's go to the book of Isaiah. Their context of what they're reading, they don't understand the power of the Lord, right? Remember the scripture in 2 Samuel, the prayer of Hannah said, I raise up and I bring down, I kill and I make alive. Let's go to Isaiah 14 real quick. Let's see if it's all cut and dry. Shall all the families of the earth be blessed. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, the Israelites. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. So we already understand that the Lord brings these statements out according to writers, how they write it. Because you know, when you go to the old writing and offer the understanding of old contextual understanding, these writers write it and some things change and you don't quite understand what's going on. Like in Genesis, I believe it's 6:6 or 9:9, when he told Noah he was going to curse the earth and flood the earth because of the mankind sinned against him. Like he didn't know what was going on. And the reason why he did it, because he was showing Noah and Moses, he was showing them the mercies. This is what Paul, when his son came on the scene, what he was talking about to bring him back through. The mercies. That's what all that was talking about. It wasn't talking about he changed his mind. He didn't know what he was going to do. So this is the same doctrine that Christians teach, and they take the power out of the Lord's word, right? When they say that you're going to burn in hell for all eternity if you don't get right with him. So he gave you the idea, the whole mindset, right? And like he said, he knew his loved ones from the womb, his elect. So if he already knows the elect, he has to know the non-elect. So he already knows who's going to wake up. So to burn somebody in hell for eternity means that he didn't have control of how the turnout was going to be. That's what it's saying, right? But anyway, for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captives, who captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. That don't sound like what we just read. We understand what's being read. We go to Acts 3:25. This is what Paul was quoting. Ye are the children of the prophets and of the covenant which God made with our fathers, saying unto Abraham, and in thy seed shall all the kindreds of the earth be blessed. Now we go into context, right? Context go on different levels. In thy seed, we know it's talking about the seed of Israel. Shall all the families, which this is originally what it would be, kindreds. What are the kindreds of the earth? That was scattered in Deuteronomy 28:64, James 1:1, Exodus, I believe 22, right? Lineage running back to the same progenitor or ancestry, the tribe or nation, group of families, right? All those who is given people lay claim to uncommon origin, okay? The Israelites was distributed to 12 tribes, descended from the 12 sons of Jacob. These are divided into families, which were divided into houses, and these will be your nations. And in thy nation, really it's nations. Again, it's the context. This is why you got to go into it and then look and see, oh, it's saying families, right? These houses were divided into families. What are families? Peoples. What are peoples? Nations. You should know that if you study, but they don't study. Let's go to Amos 3:1. There's different families. Hear the word the Lord speaking against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up from the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. So now we see nations again. So when we look at Acts 3:25 and you see kindreds, you think it's talking about everybody, but clearly families means peoples, which also means nations. But nations go two folds, because nations can be Israelites and nations can be other people. This is why they put Gentile and Greek there, because it's universalism, right? You only have I known of all the families of the earth. So now this is another form of families. This ain't the same families in Acts 3:25, right? Therefore I will punish you for your iniquities, right? Which Israelites can be included in that. You know what I'm saying? All the families of the earth, he chose one. Families. It's not one family, it's families. It's not one nation, it's nations. This is why he said, go and teach all nations and baptize them. So the ignorance of people in their mindset, they'll look at the word nation and say, oh, wait a minute, go teach all nations, that's talking about everybody. When clearly nation just means peoples. And then when you go into peoples and ethnos, it says from the same progenitor. Yeah. Let's get another example. Numbers 31:18. This is going into Median, right? Numbers 31, division of the spoils, right? 31:18. It says, but all the women children have not known a man by lying with him. Keep alive for yourselves. Why is he saying that? This is when the vengeance on Midian and they Moses, I believe, got mad because they didn't do what he was supposed to do, I believe. And the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, take the sum, both men and beast, and Eleazar. It says, it goes into take everything. I mean, I might have a slip of the tongue, but I'm just saying, when you look at this chapter, this is what it's talking about. This is going into the spoils of war. That's why they call it, when you go get a woman, you're going to get some booty. That's what booty actually means. The spoils of war. And he said, yeah, here you go. And the booty being the rest of the prey, which men of war had caught. Right? Just kind of giving the mindset of you know, you don't understand the Lord. A lot of these people don't. And when you go into the commentaries, it's simple. But you had other Christians, which I did videos on, saying, see, why it say keep the woman alive that for yourselves, right? Wouldn't they have messed with them already if they've been laid with? They don't understand tradition. These young women was not marriageable. At that time, a woman, right, who was in her menstrual was ready for sex and ready for procreation. But these simple Christians, they can't see past anything. Their whole job is to try to soften the Bible and bring that plantation, love all Christianity on you. Meanwhile, when they was bringing that on us, we was being destroyed by our oppressors. It says the Israelites were allowed to make slaves of their captives. Shortly after capture of these Midianitish women, I don't know why they say Midianitish, but Midianite women, and it may be a rising of it. The law concerning marriage of captives is enacted. It's also said, it's a whole bunch on here, either to sell them as slaves to others or to use them as servants for themselves. It's that simple, man. That's all I have.